are some high risk industries? I want you guys to come off mute or type it in the chat that, let's say, any bank or any credit union won't actually give someone funding because they're in a high risk industry, or the LOCs falls under a bracket, which is a high risk company that could default at any time. What are some high risk industries from the top of you guys' head? Come off mute or write it in the chat. Weed.
Restaurants.
Yep. Restaurants, weed. Good job. Let me get one more in the chat, or come off mute. One more.
Trucking.
Okay. Yep. So general brand. So that's why we want to make everything a general management consulting company, right? Or you're going to click other. And there's many ways to file for a LLC. Get an LLC. I usually recommend IncFile or Inc Authority. Those are two quick websites that you could file an LLC within like 10, 15 minutes. And you always want to keep it general or consulting, right? And it's super critical because consulting can mean anything, right? Consulting can mean you're consulting clients on how to service food or day-to-day operations. Just to read a quick snippet here from the NICS code down here, 541611. It's a U.S. industry establishment primarily engaged in providing operating advice and assistance to businesses and other organizations on administrative management issues such as financial planning, budgeting, equity, and asset management. So there's many ways that your business, if you want to create a salon, if you want to sell certain products, if you're looking to get into even a restaurant business, there's many ways you could structure what your business is in quotations. So underwriting and these banks could classify your LLC under this code so you could get maximum funding. So that's a quick gem that I definitely like to consult people on. And I love this quote here down below is, before you get fundable, right? Before we get money from the banks, you need to become findable. So if you have these data points and your LLC structured properly, that's a 2 thumbs up for you to get the maximum funding you can get. And these are some data points. There's obviously more, but due to time constraints, we may not go over all of them. But these are like the top 5 to 6 that I personally recommend just to have so you can maximize your funding. I know I said a lot there. Any questions, comments, concerns before we move forward? You could literally get 75 up to 100K in business funding just from leveraging your personal credit. And there's many ways that we could teach to liquidate that, right? To invest in cash flowing assets. You could literally physically hold this money from the bank. Just to add gems on that, right? The bank is using your money. So the same money you have in your personal checking account, the same way how the banks are flipping your money and investing into bonds, equities, different investment businesses, is the same way how you want to attack these banks and use their money to fund your business. You never want to come out of pocket from your personal W-2 salary or your personal income. You want to use the bank's money to get this and invest in your business and get into level with Monopoly, to get into trucking, to get into Airbnb, to get into whatever business model that you like or you have a passion for and to execute on. So it's super, super critical to understand these key data points and just execute on it. And like I said, we could talk days and days on it, but I just want you guys to get this down pat because it's super, super critical. Next slide. So it's comparable credit, right? After we have the data points, right? After we know how do we structure it, what we need to look presentable, now it's going to tie into our personal credit, right? And we need something called comparable credit. And comparable credit is key because if you have a great personal credit profile, the business funding is times 2, times 5, times 10. So the same way how you probably have a total personal limit of 15K, 20K, that's a no-brainer that a bank is like, okay, TD just opened up this new business. Wow, TD has his mortgage. He has a car. He has a 750 score. He has many revolving accounts. Why not? Let's get TD 50K. Let's give him a line of credit and a credit card because TD has shown that he can manage money. He could pay money. So they're going to invest in you and invest in your business for success. Does everybody grasp that concept why the data points and the comparable credit is super, super key? And I'm going to go over each bullet point and if you have any questions on it, we could definitely dive into it. But does that make sense how comparable credit and running the key data points is super, super critical before you even ask for money? Let me get some 1s or 5s in the chat for that, if that makes sense. Perfect. Looks good. Appreciate that, Andre, Chris, Dina, Stacy, Millie. Yeah, so with comparable credit, we typically like to have a 700, but a 680 and above it's a great funding profile. What are some ways from like the first two series, the two-part series that we had? What are some ways to raise your credit score if you have under 680, right? Because we have some people in this chat or in the Zoom call today that don't have businesses, which is perfectly fine, right? We can create the LLC in 20 minutes. But what are some ways, if you have under 680, what are some ways we could raise your credit score? Feel free to come off mute or type it in the chat. Like I said, it's an open forum. I want to hear some of you guys' voices. That's crazy.
Get a secure credit card.
Okay. Yep.
I think you get an authorized user as well. I think you said that, mentioned that. Authorized user, was it that?
Yeah, you could get an authorized user, and that's probably more an advanced question. Because with funding, they like to look at primaries. So you could get an authorized user for like purchases as like apartments, cars or houses, but like for funding purposes, correct me if I'm wrong, or Chris, they look at strictly primary and revolving accounts that Millie has in this example. Yeah, but you're on the right track just to raise your credit score.
Keep utilization low, like under 30%.
Perfect. Yep. So like I said, we know how to get our credit score up, right? We know how to build a credit, and now we're looking at ways to get funding. And the second bullet point is no derogatory reports. So what are some ways we could take off collections or charge off from the first part series that we did? If we have any like late payments, collections, charge off, what is one way we could do it from the credit repair series we did? One way. Let me get one. CFPB. Who remembers the CFPB? Dispute letters. Those are the top two ways to get it off, right? Direct reports. The third bullet point is that we want to look at 2 years of payment history. So we want to see a credit card or any revolving line of credit. It could be a mortgage, car, an installment loan, whatever the case may be, that you have been paying on time for 2 years plus. They want to look at 2 or more primary credit cards. And in total, we want 4 or more revolving accounts. That's including student loans, houses, credit cards, any type of revolving payments that you have to show on your credit profile. We want to have less than 2 increase in the past 6 to 12 months. Because one, for lack of a better word, we don't want to look thirsty, right? We don't want to look like we're thirsty for money or we're asking for money too much. So you want to keep your inquiries low. You want to keep utilization under 20%. If you have 25, 30, that's doable, but the less the better. And you typically want to have one high limit credit card over 10K, at least showing one credit card or one installment account with a high limit. And then in total, we want over 20,000 in personal limits. Like I said, if you're slightly under, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying you can't get funding, but this is like a great profile to get north of 50K in business funding for your business. Any questions or comments with that? What these bullet points that we have up front here? Perfect. I'm gonna throw like one extra like gem or sauce. I'm gonna just go to the previous slide. Let's see here. With the business checking account, right? So typically once you have your LLC, you need a checking account. One advice that I like to say is like, have a checking account, right? Let it sit. If you need to put $100 in there, put $100 in there. If you put more, the better. But typically banks work on a 90-day term basis, and these accounts will show on your business account for 90 days. So after the 91st day, that's when you typically want to go for funding, because you have a checking account with them, right? You have personal products, and you have all these data points that we just went over on the personal side, which is the comparable credit. And you also have these key data points. So you want to typically open up the checking account right away after you get your LLC EIN and let it sit, right? If you're looking to get funding, let's say in Q4, in November, December, you should start your LLC right now. So the people that typed the ones in the chat that you don't have LLC, just open up the LLC, right? You don't got to have an idea right now. You don't have to be the next Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. That's typically like the idea that people get like, I guess, mixed up or they get scared. Like having an LLC is doesn't have to mean you're gonna have like a brick and mortar shop or business. It's literally for anything, or is a way to separate yourself from another entity and get tax write-off. So there's many other benefits to have an LLC just other than having a business. So I'll say, open up the LLC and get the checking account ASAP and just let it sit. Let it sit, show that you're building a relationship with these banks, and show that you're in it for the long run. Because like I said, if we're going to get high funding amounts from these banks, you need to look credible, because nobody's just going to throw you 30, 40K just for 1 or 2 products. You need to look credible, and you need to have everything lined up. That's like if you go to a party or an event and you're not on the guest list, right? If you walk into Chase and let's say Millie, right? Let's say Millie has no personal product with Chase, and Millie just walks into Chase one day, hey, I got this new LLC. I want 30K. I have a 700 score. That's not how it works. You know, you need to get on the guest list, right? They're gonna, okay, Melly, what type of products do you have with us, right? Do you even have a personal account with us? Do you have a personal credit card? Do you have a checking account? How much is in the checking account? These are certain things that underwriting looks at to get you the maximum funding. So you also want to write that down. Just for like a side note under the checking account. Any questions, comments with that?
When it comes to the banks here, you guys really got to understand when it comes to which banks should you approach first. Again, the bank structure is the same thing as the streets. I gave the analogy about 4,000 times before, but I'll say it one more time. The central banks are just the OG on, they're the OGs when it comes to the neighborhoods. You got the regional banks. Sorry, the central banks, that's the mafia. The regional bank is the OGs, and the credit unions, those are the runners on the block. Why? At the end of the day, for you to make money as a bank, you need to loan money, right? You need to give out money. So that's why anybody, even if you have a brand new LLC, you don't have to really have that much history. Why? Because even with a 680 FICO, that's your collateral. A credit union, a local credit union will definitely give you money as long as you have a good credit profile and as long as you have a product with them. And what do we mean by that? A personal checking account is a product. A savings account is a product. A credit card is a product. Banks, Bank of America, Chase, all these banks, whenever they send you an offer, that is a product that they want to sell, right? Because at the end of the day, when you take out a loan, when you use your credit card, there's accruing interest every single month that's being ignited, right? So you got to understand that when you go to the banks, especially when it comes to your credit profile, starting out, the credit unions are going to be the most friendly. They need to loan out money. They need to make money. So with a good credit profile, a good credit score, some collateral, maybe you have 15,000, 10,000, 5,000, you put some money in their product, in their account, they will definitely give you money. Now, once you do that, you go to the regional banks. Regional banks can be like Key Bank, your Truist. Those are regional banks. Those are the banks that have some skin in the game. They definitely want to scale. They want to get to a central bank level, but they're not there yet. What? So again, they have to continue to loan out. Now, the central banks, your Chase, your Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they're going to ask for more documentation. Why? Because these are entities that are already established. These are entities that are probably going to want to see whether or not you actually make money. They want to see business statements. They want to see your taxes and things of that nature. But the recommendation here is for you to start with the credit unions, then work your way down to the regional banks, and then, of course, work your way down to the central banks. Something critical aside from this bank tier structure, you must understand before you go to a credit union, we highly recommend you to do this. Call them and see which credit bureau that they pull from. And again, Simon will definitely cover more of that when it comes to credit stacking and how do you actually protect your credit profile from being demolished from all these different applications. How do you keep your hard inquiries at a very low number, which again is really, really critical. Banks only want to see 1 to 3 hard inquiries in the last year. So how do you actually do that? And that's the strategy behind business funding that Simon is going to continue talking about that is super critical. So once you have the bank tier structure down, you have your plan. Now it's all about execution. How do I implement the right strategy to make sense? That would actually make sense where now my credit profile, I'm protecting it, but I'm also maximizing my credit profile as well.